Hi guys! So this is a video tutorial on how to do, or a guide on how to do activity page 2. So this is practice B. But before that, let's have the following examples. So it's different when you have intersections and when you have unions, okay? So let's have the intersections first. So if you're given with a graph like this and this, and it says and in the inequality. So if you're given with the inequality and you see and, so you're gonna have these kind of graphs. So let's do number 1 first. So this is when graphs of the compound inequalities are given. So let's have the first one. So if we have an intersection, so that means there is a shaded part in between them. So you must write, so if you don't have a variable given, you can just use x. So you have x. Now, if it's in between, you should write that or those symbols, because that means x is greater than this number at the left, which is -2, and then x is less than 1. Now, let's check if we got that right. So x is greater than -2. So you have -2, that hollow point. Then the shaded part is going to the right. So that should be greater than. So when you read this one, you read it as x is greater than -2, but less than 1. So see that you have a point at 1. It's a hollow point or an open point. And the shaded part is at the left of 1. So those numbers should be less than 1. Other way of saying this or reading this one is x is between -2 and 1. So that's one way of saying that one. So that applies to those open points or hollow points. Now, what if you got a shaded part like these? So if we got a shaded point, so again, if the shade is in between, you write x. If it's in between them, you write that. Shaded or not, if they are shaded, don't forget that line, because that means you included -2 and you included 3. So when you read this one, this should be x is between -2 and 3, okay? So x is between -2 and 3, and that's right. Or if it says inclusive, that means it's shaded. So you should have that shaded dots or solid dots. Now, again, if you have an intersection, if you have the word and, the graphs should be like this. So if you're given with a graph, you write the x first, then do the symbols. The least numbers or the number at the left should be at the left side of your inequality. Now, the number at the right should be at the right side also of your compound inequality. And that's it. For intersection, when you're using the word and, or if your graph looks like this. Now, if we have the union, so a union is a different case. So you will know if it's a union of two inequalities if you have arrows pointing at the opposite side or opposite to each other. So for example, this one. So this part right here, that's a solid point. So that should be x. Those numbers at the left are less than or equal to -1. You should write equal or that bar at the bottom of the sign because that's shaded. So x is less than or equal to -1. Don't forget the or. Now do the other side. So or x is those numbers at the right. Those are the numbers which is greater than 2. So your point is at 2. and it's shaded, so that symbol should be greater than or equal to 2. So that's it. That's your answer for number 3. So if you have the graph given for number 3, that's how you do that. Now for number 4, look at number 4. You have their open points. Okay? So let's write this one at the left first. So x is less than -2, only less than -2 because it's open. Or x, it's going to the right, is greater than +1. So that should be your compound inequality using this graph. Now, if you're given with a compound inequality and you have to draw the graph or you make the graph, so just do the same thing. So for example, if you're given with this one, if it's or, then the arrows should be opposite to each other or facing different ways. And just like this, get the point, take note if it's less than or with the equal sign, if it's greater than or with the equal sign. And when we have the intersection, take note also if you're given with inequality and we have to make the graph, if x is in between those two symbols, so that means the shade should be in between, okay? So the left number is that left point also when you make the graph, and that number at the right should be the last number in your graph at the right. Same with this one. Again, take note of the symbols if it has an equal sign or just less than or greater than, okay? Now let's try activity page B. So let's do page 2, which is practice B. So let me have this one. So for example, you have this. So kindly look at your practice B. So this is, look at number 1. You're given with a graph, and then you're gonna write the compound inequality. So look at the shade. It's in between those 2 points. So which one is the same as that one? So it should be the same as what we did in number 1 and number 2, okay? Because the shaded part is in between. It's in between 2 numbers. For number 2, remember if the arrows are facing at the opposite direction, so it's to the left and to the right, so you must do the or. Now, take note when you do the or, check if it's open for the point or shaded for the point. So a hollow point or a shaded point differs when you write it in symbols. So for example, this one. This should be less than only, okay? So x is less than, look at the number. Then you write or, and then for the right side, you have there x is greater than, it's shaded, so you should write x is greater than or equal to whatever that point is, okay? So number 3 is the same when you did the union because the arrows are facing the opposite sides, at the opposite sides. Now, number 4, the shade is in between, so you must use that concept for intersection, okay? Now, number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what you're gonna do with this one is you have to solve for the x. So for example, the first one. I'll just help you with the first one. Okay, so look at the first one. In between, you have there -8. It should only be x in between. So what's the opposite of subtracting 8? So whatever that is, you're gonna do that to each side, at the left and at the right. So opposite of -8 or -8 is just +8. Just to make this one in the middle 0, okay? So you add 8, so -8 plus 8, that becomes 0. So in the middle, you'll just have x in between, okay? Now, at the left side, remember we have to add add 8 to the left and to the right. What's -15 plus 8? You write your answer over here at the left of that symbol. So for example, what's -15 plus 8? You solve for that one. Now, at the right side, you write the answer. Oh, the symbol should be the same. Whatever the symbol that's given, that should be the same, okay? Now, take note, oh, this is not an equal. Let me delete that one. Okay, so take note, whatever your answer is for -4 plus 8, because we have to add 8, you write it at the right side. When you have that compound inequality already, you graph it using this number line. Take note, some of you have turned in activity page A or practice A or activity page 1 without the intervals, okay? So make sure you write the intervals. You can start with negative. It's up to you. So it could be a number before the number that you're gonna write at the left, or it's up to you. Just make sure that you have the numbers, okay? And you show the graph. Same with the other ones. Now, this one has no plus or minus, but it has 4n. What is the opposite of multiplying 4? Because that's just like 4 times n. So opposite of multiplying 4 is dividing by 4. So what you're gonna do is, what's 12 divided by 4? You write the answer, copy the symbol, you write n in between, because 4 becomes 1, and 1 times n is just n. So where do we get 1? 4 divided by 4. Remember, we have to do the opposite. Now, also at the right side, so copy the symbol, at the right side, 28 divided by 4, what's that? And then you write it down. So again, we should have n only in the middle, or that one variable only in the middle, if you have that. And that's it. After you solve for that, you graph it. Now look at number 8. You have or. So that means your graph should show arrows pointing to the left and to the right. But this is not yet finalized. This is not yet simplified. So to solve for x, you have to add 3 and add 3. Okay? Because you have to do the opposite of this one so that only x will remain. So you will write x is less than, what's -3 plus 3? Write the answer. And then you write or. Oh. You write or after that. And then you solve for the right side. So what's the opposite of -3? Again, that's +3. So what's 3 plus 3? So the other one should have x, copy the symbol, and then whatever the answer is for 3 plus 3, okay? Don't forget to write or. Now, after you have written or, after you have written or, make sure you do that that right side or the right part. And that's it. That's for 5, 6 to 10. So do the same thing. For number 11, take note, if it says inclusive, so it says between, so this should be intersection. If it says inclusive, the points should be shaded, okay? So whatever the lesser number is, it should, of course, it should be at the left part of your graph. And then whatever the greatest number is in here, you should write it at the right side. Now, in here, it says he must weigh more than. It didn't say inclusive. So if you say more than, that means the symbol should be that one. Okay? So, oh, this is between, right? So let me delete this one. So the symbol for this one, let's go back to number 11. So it says inclusive, so between, so you can write X over there. But for number 12, it says more than, it says inclusive anyway, over here. Okay. So if it says, I can't click it more. If it says inclusive, take note, you should write that with the equal sign. I just can't write the equal sign. Same with that one, okay? So less than or equal to, and also at the left side. Now this one, it's more than, so more than 140, you write the X, And then, but at most 147 pounds. So if you say at most, that means it could be equal to. So you write that equal also at the bottom. So take note, I cannot trace the equal over here. Let me use this one. Oh, this is for the signature. Never mind. And that's it. So this should be equal the right side. For the top, it should have that equal also. Less than or equal to, less than or equal to. But when you read it, it should be X is in between those two numbers. This one, it should be X is in between two numbers. But this side only will have less than. And that's it. I think that's it. So I hope to see you again. Tell me if you need more help and I'll guide you, okay? So stay safe. Bye-bye.